into our main topic to talk Secret Invasion, the exit survey, 6-episode series on Disney Plus. Nick, what is the synopsis?
Fury and Talos try to stop the Skrulls who have infiltrated the highest spheres of the Marvel Universe.
Yes, and this was created by Kyle Bradstreet, and I think the preeminent director was Ali Salim, I think is his name. It's starring Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury, not Nick Fury as Samuel L. Jackson, as I said earlier. It could be, though. Yeah. Emilia Clarke as Gaia, Ben Mendelson as Talos, Don Cheadle as James Rhodes. A little different James Rhodes this time around. I'm not sure about that. No. We have Kingsley Ben-Adir as Gravik, who makes a very strong performance as this, as does Olivia Colman playing Sonya Fallsworth, as does Charlene Woodard, who playing Priscilla or Vera through this series. A lot of good performances here. Colby Smolder makes an appearance as Maria Hill. We have Dermot Mulroney as President Ritson. Christopher McDonald, a.k.a. Shooter McGavin, as Chris Stearns, the Tucker Carlson-like media figurehead. Samuel Adewunmi as Beta, one of the sidekicks of the Skrulls there and of Gravik, as well as Killian Scott's Pagan, who was interesting because he was following a false god and then ends up dying.
This is true.
And his name's Pagan.
As for the critics' reception, of course, there's no box office in this because it's a show. Received a 6.2 out of 10 on IMDb, as well as a 56-58 split on Rotten Tomatoes, where it also has like the lowest rated MCU episode or pieces of content ever. The final episode was a 5%. Is that right?
Yeah, something like that. And I think like the 4 of the 6 episodes are some of the lowest rated content just in general, aside from episode 6, in the MCU.
I think there was a lot of 50s and 30s, no 40s. No, it was wild. 3.1 out of 5 from Google reviews, and 72% of Google users like this show.
Yes, and we have score and tweet length review. I'm going to go first here. I'll give this an 81 out of 100. Secret Invasion did a lot of the things that I've missed from the MCU in recent years, months. And did enough to keep me invested throughout the series. Ultimately, though, the series falters where many other Disney Plus MCU shows have. That's a CGI mishmash finale fight and too clean of an ending that felt rushed.
Yeah, we're in a pretty similar boat here. I actually gave it a slightly lower score, 80 out of 100, but we're living in the same building, maybe even on the same floor. Very easy show to binge because that is what I did. Ending was a bit rushed, though. It's what everybody's been talking about, and I tend to agree with this. Still, this has the ability to impact the MCU for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. So that gives us a combined CMMCU score of 80.5 here, which let me scroll down. That is going, we're going to go into the
scroll
second
down,
page
look at
here. Yeah, oh, wow. I didn't even mean to do that. There. That puts it 32nd out of 41 properties. Just behind Thor: Love and Thunder with 82.5, and just ahead of Avengers: Age of Ultron, and that feels right to me. I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know about you.
Yeah, no, this feels like it was solid. I mean, let's get into the exit survey questions because I feel like I'm going to start dipping my toes into this accidentally.
Well, before we do that, so we obviously don't agree with the overall critics' reception with how poorly it was received here. And I just want to hear your thought, because my initial thought was like, and I felt like the general consensus leading into the show is that everyone was looking for a spy political thriller type show, that as this was billed as, with like a la Winter Soldier, a la Falcon and the Winter Soldier, that sort of thing. And by and large, I thought we got that. Now, whether that was to the degree that everyone wanted or not, this was largely a political spy thriller show, which I think is kind of slower just in nature to what goes on. So I'm kind of surprised by people saying how boring it was. This was, in a lot of ways, how it was billed with the outside, with the exception of the title, right? It's not really the secret, but as everything being a political spy thriller, I think that lived up to.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I mean, if they had landed the final episode better, and look, I don't agree with the 5% on Rotten Tomatoes. I think that's absolutely insane. But had it been better, this probably would have been like I would say trending towards like an 85 for me, something to that level. It was good. Like, and again, I binged it, so it was a little bit different. I could see how people would say week to week, maybe it would be a little low for them, but this is also where maybe it's different, Wes, and like having a show, something like this as a movie instead. And I know you kind of wanted to talk about that in some capacity too. You said a while back, like maybe because of the nature of the story, maybe that would have been, it would have fit better because then it doesn't feel as slow because you can't have any fat. And I don't think this had a whole lot of fat on it, if we're being honest.
No, and especially towards the back end of
Yeah.
the season there for
Yeah.
sure.
No, I mean, it's almost like you needed it a little bit more.
Yeah. A little
Um,
more cushion for the pushing on the back end.
yeah. So it was wow. Yeah. Um yeah, so but it's so that was so I don't agree with, but I still don't think like this wasn't bad. It was just it was solid. Like my definition of fine is between like is like anywhere from like an 80 to a 75, and I thought like this was fine throughout, and then the ending was like I thought it was better than fine throughout, and then the ending was like meh, so it's like
Yeah.
that's where I meet in the middle.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely here. So yeah, let's hop right in because this does kind of roll into our first question here. Did this series live up to your expectations?
It's a little bit tougher to say. I'm probably where I know you are, which is like just shy. Like I
Yeah.
thought it was kind of trending to exceed it, and then it's just like the ending, just like well, wait, like it was just too fast. And as much as I'm not bothered by using all the CGI at the end, because some of it I thought was very good. I don't think it was poorly done.
Yeah, and the content, the topic that they were using, everything that they were pulling from, the idea was a great idea, and
Yep.
I'm kind of living with just like the CGI limitations that Disney Plus has. Like it is what it is.
So I think that like it was from going into it, I would say it was like right around my expectations. But as I was watching the show, the way it ended, I would say in that regard, it fell a little flat, came up short.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, this just fell just shy of my expectations for a lot of the reasons you just hit on, specifically the ending and just the crash landing of the season. That it is what it was, just so rushed, and you kind of got a lot of things that are kind of dangling out there, which maybe get cleaned up in sequels or follow ups and stuff. But what I really liked about this was again the political spy thriller, and then having to be intently watching something. So I think for a while, particularly with the MCU shows, it hasn't been like eyes glued to the screen, have to be watching for clues or hints or red herrings and things like that, and or watching any of like the companion YouTube content that breaks everything down to be able to find again Easter eggs or little things like that, like
Mm-hmm.
Miss Marvel, She-Hulk, some of those other shows. I think even Moon Knight to a degree. Like I found myself just scrolling through my phone and just like I didn't really have to watch to get everything. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? But there's a lot of little things that get tells within the conversations or the backgrounds, specifically when you're talking about the harvest and the super scroll antidote. You're looking on the computer screen. And you're like, what are those superheroes' DNA that they have there? And you're trying to stop the screen right away so you can see it on the computer. Stuff like that. I feel like has been missing from a lot of the MCU shows, which I liked getting back to.
Yeah, like that's there was a lot good to it, but at the same time, there was just like we said, it just fell a little short.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, okay. So where does this rank in your post Endgame rankings?
I was looking at your notes and I was trying to do the math on mine. It's actually like towards the bottom. Like so our list it's 14th out of 17.
Right.
But for me, based on all my rankings, it is it's like the second lowest after Eternals. So and I feel like fine with that. Like I like most of the stuff post Endgame more than most people do.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And this is 8th out of 17th for me. But like I said, 14th out of 7, which is just crazy in general that we've had 17 properties since Endgame. It doesn't feel like that because everything has been kind of like meh, kind of middle of the ground. There's not a whole lot that you can kind of really like sink your teeth into. That, and I think that's movies and content in general, or the TV in general. But yeah, I thought this was good. Again, it did some very interesting things. I love the performances by the majority of the cast. I think that's where the most of the money went into, just paying this big cast that you had, and I think that ultimately paid off. But there was again, so you have questions about Rhodey. There's questions about overpowerness. There's CGI questions.
Mm-hmm.
There's a whole rush story for. I'm not a comic book reader. I imagine that you've read Secret Invasion, that series. Have you read that?
No, I never read Secret Invasion.
Oh well, I mean, but then you're well aware
Secret
of just
Warfare.
the impact that it's had
Yes,
and
of course,
how
of course.
it was a huge kind of comic
Yes,
book moment there.
absolutely.
And then for it to not, that doesn't affect me, but I can certainly understand people being upset by kind of just like bastardizing the name and kind of using the name for attention.
Yeah, 100%. And like for me personally too, it's just like this is like it's like there's a lot of stuff that's good about it, but this does happen sometimes where it's like I like Nick Fury and I thought he did a great job, but like beyond him, there were good performances, but it's like I don't know. I guess it's just characters that I'm not in any capacity like familiar with. Where maybe this goes up a couple points if like I'm more familiar with some of them. It's not. I'm not going to take a huge knock on that because that's not really fair. But it's just like that's another thing that maybe like puts this behind a couple other shows or movies that have come out post Endgame.
All right, then let's get into the nitty gritty. We've been kind of dealing with the abstract, the big picture here, but let's go small picture on the small screen. What was the most rewatchable scene of the series for you?
I honestly that massacre at the end of I believe the first episode where Maria Hill dies.
Oh, the blowing up of the Russian embassy there, right?
Yeah,
yeah.
That was intense, man. That was crazy. I mean, that was one of the that was wild.
And that's a good pull, and that's probably the benefit of you getting to binge this because that feels so far removed from my mind there that when I saw that on your list, I was like, oh, that's a good call. Yes,
and it wasn't. Okay, sorry.
No, you go ahead. It's more fresh in your mind.
Well, it's the thing that for me was biggest, Wes, is like as I'm watching every single episode because they're flashing back to it here and there and stuff. I'm like, are they gonna bring her back? Are they gonna find a way to do it? Like it's just because A, you got the scrolls involved, and B, like it's comics. Like anybody can come back, but we didn't see her at all.
No. I think we saw the body there. We saw the cold body there. So I think she might be gone.
Yep.
And I think even Colby Smulders had said some quotes about that too, about her kind of ending her time in the MCU there. I'm with you. I think that's great. It kind of sets the stage very well of this kind of cat and mouse game where Gravik seems like kind of one step ahead of Nick Fury, and Fury's really being established as like a guy who's over the hill, kind of past his prime. So it's interesting, and you're wondering how that's going to come back to bite him in the ass with Gravik posing as Fury to kill Maria Hill there, and of course it does. So at least that got paid off.
Yeah,
but yeah, I agree with you. And the other big one, the other big fight piece scene, this is kind of the real big set piece, is the Russian attack on the U.S. president with the Skrulls. Thought that was very cool. A little sloppy in its execution there. You would think if you had Rhodey on your side protecting the president that he would have the War Machine technology with him. But he doesn't use that. In fact, they actually make an interesting cut to him when he's sitting in the car while all that's going on. He kind of just like looks away, which I think is pretty telling, right? If you didn't know at that point or start questioning what Rhodey's deal was, that's a good telling point.
Yep.
I just mentioned this too, discovering the first powers of the Super Skrulls on the computer. That's like classic MCU Easter egg stuff that I loved. And you're like, oh my God, we have Groot here. We have not Corvus Clay, but we have Cull Obsidian. We have the Extremis and the last one that I'm blanking on there, but there was another one that was right there. And you're like, oh man, how are they going to use this? How is this all going to kind of come to fruition here? And there was some really cool uses of the powers, particularly with Groot and the Extremis in particular that I liked.
Yeah, they had some. The Groot stuff was actually insane. I like, it's funny as you say that. It's like I forgot they mentioned him, and it's like no, we very visibly see the Groot because that's what happens with Pagan.
Yeah, it happens with Pagan, and then it happens with the attack on the president there, and the Russian attack. So, and the Russian attack is great too because you get to see the Extremis to some of the best use there. Gravik, I mean, you see him kind of stabbing his hand or getting his hand stabbed, then pulling it through. Very cool use of that power, and then again getting his face blown off. And it's just kind of coming right back, and you're kind of seeing that hole through his face.
Right.
Very cool. And again, I was saying this to Mac when we did kind of a season finale preview on the Mac and Goo program. This is some of the more violent adult themed content that we've gotten probably since U.S. Agent, killing a bystander, a villain with the Captain America shield.
Yeah, no, this was like I like this show. Like they need the elements of this show. There's a lot of good in here. There's some really good writing too, as much as the ending was a little bit rushed. It's just like, there are flaws wherein this could have been better, but there are some really strong points to it. I think that is a good one to hit on.
Yeah, and you mentioned the writing here. A couple of honorable mentions. I don't think this is worthy of the top spot, but Fury and Vera talking at the dinner table, episode 5, episode 4, something like that. Really good back and forth as they're quoting her favorite poetry and kind of coming to the grips that she's been a Skrull working for Gravik all this time, and it's that kind of betrayal that's been going on, while also her. They're both expressing love for one another, but there are also problems with one another too, with Fury being snapped and them being so distant, literally, in space on the Saber space site or whatever that is. So I thought that was really well done and one of the stronger points of the season. And then you touched on this, the Gravik handling the internal uprising there, right, against Pagan, and just him going nuts, slitting the guy's throat, and just literally, who wants some? Who wants a piece of this? Come get some. Yeah,
that was actually
really fun.
So the acting. Why am I blanking on his
Kingsley Benadir?
Kingsley Benadir was outstanding, but also the writing was outstanding with that character too. Like, there's so many times where we see these like leaders that are very aggressive and very like, I guess, toxic in some ways, and it's like they're still going to watch out for their own. They're not like, they'll discipline one person, but then they'll stop. They kind of end there, just they want to scare the people. Sometimes they are unhinged, and I want to see that here and there, and we get that with this character. And he was really good. Like, he's a villain that looks like we're not going to ever see again, but it's a shame.
I hope that I have that unanswerable question almost out of hope. But yeah, I agree. I feel like this is one of the more formidable villains that we've had, especially on the TV show platform, in a while. And like you said, like, we've had the High Evolutionary, we've had He Who Remains, we have Kang the Conqueror. All these guys have been calculated and measured and like move like pieces on a chessboard. And certainly Gravik has some of that to him, but there was also, again, that bit of like wild, untamable rage that came out there, which I thought was nice.
Yes.
Nice to see. Nice change of
pace. So when I say that there are characters who I don't really know here that I don't care about, like with him, it didn't matter. Yeah,
you buy him pretty quickly too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. All right. So we're in the unanswerable questions portion here. I feel like this could be pretty deep here. What do you got?
Well, the one I think that comes out of the finale is, can anybody beat Gaia now?
She's almost too overpowered. It's like, how do they use her? I feel like that's like kind of, those questions go hand in hand now. I mean, you saw them kind of nerf Thor and Captain Marvel and, like, Thanos a little bit in the second and Endgame there. But albeit you didn't have the Infinity Gauntlet. But, nevertheless, like, it feels like they're going to have to nerf her a little bit.
I would think they'll be like, oh, the body, even the Skrull body, can't contain all of these powers. Like, it wasn't meant to do that, blah, blah, blah. Like, something like that will probably be the explanation. Like, it'll start like wear and tear on her because it's like too much.
Yeah, or maybe she can be stripped of it at a certain point. It can be extracted. Maybe. Like, I don't know. You can lose it. I don't know if that works once it's in your DNA. But maybe there's something there.
But in this state, she's not losing a fight.
Right. No. Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
How long has Rhodey and Martin Freeman been Skrulls? This has kind of been answered, but I'm not sure if I believe it.
I mean, yeah. To that end too, my follow up to that is, can anybody in the MCU be trusted?
Yeah, and this is where I like where the show kind of leaves the MCU off, is in kind of this paranoid, schizophrenic type of world where you have to be looking over your shoulder, or you have to be weary of everyone now, because you're not really sure. There's a million Skrulls walking among us, and they've all been outed.
A million.
So, yeah. So I think that leads to, like, again, a lot of cool ideas. So I think that's a very interesting question. But with the Rhodey stuff, the director said Captain America Civil War. That's what he was alluding to. Him being without the braces, still paralyzed in the hospital gown. So that means, like, there's a lot that if you go back and watch the old movies there, that doesn't really make sense. It doesn't really add up. But I think going forward, it creates an interesting dynamic or character element for Rhodey.
Yeah,
I think it ruins a lot of his early foundation. But
yeah, there's a lot with this past that I'm like curious about, and I will say for like Armor Wars, whatever the hell is Armor Wars, right?
Yep.
Like whatever the hell the plan is there, if that's still going forward or whatever. I like where I always thought, yeah, I don't like we'll watch it, but I'm like, this is the thing I'm least excited about. Now I'm very excited. Now I'm very invested. Like this, we get to see what the hell is really going on with him. So I'm very curious. If we can get some information, like it's a timeline and everything, and then just see where he goes. And I don't need it to be this like 8-episode thing. 4 would probably be, I feel like, be the sweet spot. But again, something like don't rush it, please.
Well, this is going to be a movie. They upgraded it to a movie.
Oh, they did? Okay.
Yeah. So I think that because they saw the potential
sense
around it, and they're like, all right, this is too big for a Disney Plus show.
Yep.
And there were rumors that they're trying to get Robert Downey Jr., but he's too big to put on a Disney Plus show. So like maybe they're trying to work that in there somehow. But yeah, I think it's pretty interesting because while it does, hurt again his moments in Endgame talking with Nebula about the death of Robert Downey Jr., never even knowing that he died there to begin with. And then even going to Captain and the Winter Soldier, his conversation with Sam Wilson about essentially being a black superhero is like all kind of feels like falling on faint ears. They have this like interesting conversation where they're in the Captain American Museum, and he comes out early about being named Captain America right after U.S. Agent was being named there, or he was stripped of it.
Oh, you mean in the Winter Soldier? Okay, got it. In the Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
Did I say Captain and the Winter Soldier?
Yeah. But like that, no. But okay, I wonder though if that like, part of me thinks that makes sense that happened because. Like maybe what was
just doesn't feel as heartfelt. You know what I mean? Because knowing that it's just a scroll underneath it.
But now knowing that it was a scroll underneath it, it makes sense where it's all just friggin' hollow because maybe he was trying to get Walker into that seat.
Right. He's kind of create some division or something like that. Yeah. I can see that from there.
I'm interested to see how go. I don't know if I'm going to do it, but going back and looking at all the stuff that Rhodey was involved, that would be a really good YouTube supercut if someone was able to do that. All of these conversations. Yeah.
Our YouTube brethren, help us out here.
You're welcome, everybody.
Martin Freeman, right? That has to be after Wakanda or after Black Panther, but before Wakanda Forever.
It could be from the first time we saw him.
Well, because he gets shot and he bleeds red, and he gets taken back to life, and brought back to life there with the Wakandans and what's her name there, Shuri.
Someone did their research.
Yeah, a little bit there, right? What does this set up for the future of the MCU now with the Skrulls? Because you have this with Olivia Colman now working with Gaia for British intelligence, MI6, which seems to be like a British version of what Val Contessa de la Fontaine is putting together with the Thunderbolts and everything like that. Now you have all these vigilantes going out there trying to kill Skrulls at the word of the president.
That was interesting. Like the evolution was like, wow, like it makes perfect sense. That was really good. Like the speech is another thing. I know you have that jotted down elsewhere, but the reaction to it was actually perfect.
Yeah, and I like the montage and everything of like everyone kind of coming in at once, which makes me wonder: are these vigilantes or are these like black book military units? You know what I mean? Like CIA or kind of like off the book sort of things, or are these like militia? Just acting at the word of the television. You know what I mean? So I think that could be again how they handle that could be interesting as well. But this is again, I would hope be gearing towards Secret Wars because you have all these divided factions now that you have. No, I forget what the term is, but like non-Earth military combatants, I think that might be it. All considered illegal. So that's your all your Thor people. Why can't I think of that?
Yeah, Asgardians.
Thank you. Asgardians, you have all these people now, the Guardians of the Galaxy, who could just be considered outlaws on Earth. So that could be interesting there. Again, what was Sonya Fallsworth wanting to do with the plans for the Super Scroll machine and working with Gaia to further understand it. This could be, I think, credit to Mac. He brought this up when we did the series finale preview, is that this might be how we get the Fantastic Four. You have all the powers of the Fantastic Four within that machine. You have Korg, which was represented there in the final battle scene. You have obviously Extremis, that could be the fire. You have Ghost that pops up in there, which could be the phasing, going invisible. And then you have the Groot kind of Stretch Armstrong ability there. So that all sets up for the Fantastic Four. Maybe they get hired to work and kind of recreate this machine for a government entity. Something goes awry, they get hit with the powers.
Yeah, that could work.
That seems to be, that's a little twist on the original story, but it kind of stays within the world of the MCU.
That would be an interesting move. I'm actually curious. I wouldn't mind it, but I'm also not a big Fan 4 fan, so I'm curious.
Last one. What is Vera's research that is so important on Earth?
Couldn't tell you.
What's her deal?
It's a good unanswerable question.
Yeah. And do we think Gravik is dead?
Yeah, I do. Well,
because he has the Extremis.
Well, I don't think so. Now that my first reaction was but like it's comics.
My initial impression is yes too.
Yeah, but
I don't want him to be there. I want him to be in the fold somehow.
See, but the thing is, I want him, but like making him dead is also like a good thing. But if you're gonna bring him back, you got to wait a long time.
Yeah, you got to wait a little. But I really liked his performance more so. So I just getting him in there, I think, was cool as well. What will age the best from this series?
The writing of Nick Fury was so good. Samuel Jackson obviously did a great job. I mean, there's a reason where, like all jokes aside, when you go and accidentally list Nick Fury instead of Samuel L. Jackson as the actor at the beginning of the show, like
it's a compliment.
It's a compliment to how he's portrayed this character. He's done an outstanding job from day one. This doesn't change here, even though there's a huge change with this character. And the thing is, like, we start to see serious flaws with him where he's always had the answers, as much as he's like the only human aside from like Hawkeye and I guess Black Widow in all of this, who's trying to like move all the pieces around. And we see the flaws. And on top of that, we get a really good post-blip story from somebody who was blipped. And it was heavy with him. It was really, and then there's also like the husband side of it all that we see. And there's just different, there's other like dynamics, of course, because he's married to a Skrull that are talked about. So it's a lot of, when you talk about like mature stuff in terms of the action and everything, and in the torture scenes and whatnot, we also get like mature stuff here when we're talking about like his emotional roller coaster ride.
Sure, and the relationship of that, and there's the obvious allusions to immigration and acceptance and all that stuff, right? Too. So a lot of adult themes there. Although if we're talking about spending, like having more time spent on the story, or the story overall feeling rushed, the first thing I cut from this is the whole Fury backstory of having a love interest in a family. That's the first thing I cut from it. Although I think it did offer some great things, like I mentioned, the Fury and Vera talking at the table. The great just performances overall, adding that extra depth, I think, is an interesting layer. But ultimately, that's where I'm going to cut it, because what I want is a political spy thriller that kind of keeps you guessing, and kind of again has that paranoid schizophrenic type of feel through it. And this just levels it out too much.
Okay.
So not that it was bad, but again, if I had my hands on the final editing bay, that's probably where I'm going.
See, for me too, like with who is the actress that played Priscilla, Charlene Woodard, like I didn't know for a lot of the time, like, can she fully be trusted? I thought she put together a great performance.
She was awesome.
Where like I tend to be of the mind that you have, where it's like, do we always need the love stories? Do we need that kind of stuff? It's such a cliche thing for people to get invested in. You need that,
especially for Nick Fury, who feels, again, like part of what's great about him is the mysteriousness to him. And to kind of get that backstory kind of takes away that mystique a little bit. It's not a huge deal, but that's, I think that's what makes him great.
Here's my thing. I was surprised when it happened like anybody else. And then I was like, okay, how's this going to go? Because I'm generally like, I don't need, like I'm saying, I don't need a love story. but I thought like she was so good, and obviously he's
Yeah.
he's just so conflicted and so messed up that it plays into it all. Where I like wouldn't want that. I like many times I would be like, you can take that out. This is one time where I'm not feeling that way.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and just to echo, you said the performances of Jackson, Mendelson, Benadier, Woodard, Clarke, Coleman, all of them I thought were awesome.
Yep.
And again, if that's where the majority of the budget went, was to get these actors on board, kudos to them, because it paid off from that aspect. The concept of the harvest, I think that's really interesting. Again, would have loved a flashback scene of them going and actually collecting some of this DNA and what that was actually like, who was on this team. I think that's a very interesting, using the Skrulls to kind of blend in and like act like they're supposed to be there. Very interesting. However, bad job by Nick Fury of combining all of the DNA into one vial. That could have been, you want to spread your eggs around a little bit. So if you get your hands on one, they don't have them all, right?
Yeah, that was interesting choice.
Yeah, very interesting with that. But again, I love that idea. And that being like the ultimate weapon there, right?
Yeah, definitely.
How about this? This is a little on the nose here. How about the U.S. staging a false flag incident in an attempt to get into a war with Russia? That was, you talk about like the Falcon and the Winter Soldier being too on the nose for COVID and having to like rearrange the bio weapon release and like everything like that, and having to like, cover all that up. Like this, I think they actually even mentioned like a couple of Ukraine things that got pulled out too.
Did they?
Or they did bring up Ukraine in this, and I thought, I was like, it's just very weird in the current times that we're in right now to see them again doing all of this.
Well, Secret Invasion's timing is also weird, just given what's in the news too. Like the whole idea.
With the alien disclosure.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting. Although you see the general who was doing all of the speaking. Did you see any of those clips?
Is this like in the past couple of days? Because no,
it was during the hearing when that was going on last week.
I saw. I think. I know. I think I know who you're talking about.
He's got like a bald head. He's like a military guy. But he actually looks like a reptilian. He kind of looks like an alien. So I'm not sure if I can trust this guy too much.
Wow. And at the hotel that I was at this weekend, it was like we were somehow we got stuck on like True TV, and there was definitely there's some paranormal stuff like that was popping up just like everywhere around me between this and that.
Did you feel like somebody's watching you?
Yes.
I always feel like somebody's watching me.
That's why I don't mind doing these shows, because it's like, what's the difference?
Yeah, exactly. There we go. So that's some of the stuff that will age the best from this movie. But what will age the worst?
Well, I mean, the finale, we already know that. Whether you have an issue with the CGI or have an issue with the pacing or both, because it doesn't necessarily need to be both. It's just that's not going to go because the rest of it is good. Again, trending towards an 85 on mine, which also means it could have moved up the scales. It could have been an 87. Heck, it could have been a 90 if they completely landed it. And there were good elements to it, but just didn't do a great job with it. And that doesn't usually bother me as much. So that I feel like that should say something. But the other thing that's not going to age well is viewers' trust in any characters that we see in the MCU going forward. Anybody who's slightly suspect, scroll. We were already doing it before this.
Yeah, exactly. So now it's going to be interesting. I think my money is also on Justin Hammer. If we're talking Armor Wars, I think Sam Rockwell is going to be reprising his role in that. At least that was the early rumor. So if he comes back, he's a Skrull full on. That's at least I want him to be. But I'm with you with the Rush finale. I have President Ritson's militarized, rage-filled statement against all non-Earth military combatants. That little statement that he gave there, which then we talked about that little montage that followed it. The montage was great. The speech was very weird. It seemed very out of character because I think leading up to this, he seemed kind of like a fair and balanced president. I don't know if that was just my interpretation. And then he goes and he's obviously pissed because he's been duped by these Skrulls there and almost killed by them, right? And like almost sending the country into nuclear or the world into nuclear war. But he's quickly forgetting that one of them saved his life. Yeah. Or wasn't told that, it wasn't really discussed about. So you would think he would have some level of understanding. That was his whole point of sacrificing himself for the president, was to hope that okay, here's the Skrulls aren't all bad.
That is one of the things for me that was a huge issue with the finale. It's like This guy has seemed so level-headed the whole time, and it's not even that he could have the writing that could have still held up. You still could have had it where he issues this whole warning. I think that's fair. It's the way the actor went about it. Unfortunately, he just hadn't set the stage, or the writing hadn't set the stage for him to be as irate as he was. And I understand it's a unique situation, but it just didn't feel right.
Yeah, and it doesn't even sound like something a president would say.
Maybe.
Or like a leader would say too. Like it's so aggressive.
Now, if you made him a Skrull, which is what I thought was the case afterwards, it's like, all right, it's a Skrull.
Then, now that's interesting, right? Because he gets into the car at the end, right? And you're kind of seeing from the driver's view from the back seat, and he kind of gets this like weird look. I'm with you on that. It made me it hung on him a little too long for me to think that he's completely clean.
And if he's a Skrull, or if he's dirty in some capacity, or if it's more so, if it's not actually the president we'd seen up to that point. If it's still the same guy and he's dirty, then you should be way better at this than that. It just felt like, but if it was not him, however you want to do that, Skrull or whatever, or somebody else with like a Mission Impossible mask, then it works. Then the finale could age a little bit better, where maybe I bump it up to like maybe an 82.
Okay, maybe an 82. That's a tough critic right there. I'm with you. How about the Drax arm on Kaya? That aged pretty bad.
I mean,
it's the proportion of it all.
That's the thing. That's the problem. Is like it doesn't look poorly done, like where we've talked about with a like a Venom and Carnage and stuff like that.
Right.
It's just like it was kind of okay. I don't think it was a CGI problem. I think it was whoever decided to okay that was the problem.
No, it looked like it was the actual arm just scaled down. Like they were just able to pull the arm from Drax from a Guardian movie and then drag it over onto her arm. That's weird. What it looks like. And if you shrink it down to size.
If you had her in Skrull form, maybe it's not as much of an issue. Just saying.
There we go. That's interesting. I like that there.
Looks weird on a human body.
But the inherent problem with this whole Secret Invasion show is that they are dying to be in their own skin. But the only way that us, the viewers, can differentiate them is by being in their human skin. So they're constantly talking in their human skin about how they want to be in their own skin.
That's a really
there's a disconnect there, right?
Yeah, that's a really good call, because even at their compound, they're like, but they did right around it where they're like, the longer you're in the skin that you're trying to like portray, the more comfortable you are, the less likely you are to revert back to it. They did kind of lay it, and it was her that laid it out. So they do have that, but it is interesting, like paradox.
It is. It is a little bit there. Yeah. How about Sassy Rhodey? He's a sassy little Skrull, that Rhodey.
Yes. Yeah. That was that again. Him being like that makes me think even more so like that president's a Skrull.
Yeah, because who's just putting up with that? Like he's talking drunk. He's like talking like drunk after drinking Pappy Van Winkle with the president on the or with Fury while talking with the president on that Air Force One. Then you got him talking to whoever that high-ranking woman military official was. Who's like, are you taking crazy pills or something like that? And it's like, no one talks like that.
Yeah. To be clear, I don't think the president was a Skrull till like that moment where
right. He got subbed out somewhere. Yeah.
Yes, it was like a last minute like shift. But yeah, like Sassy Rhodey was very odd. I unfortunately had already seen the spoiler. I know we were suspecting already that he was a Skrull, but like when I saw him giving Nick Fury lip like that, I was like, this feels a little off for Rhodey. Yeah,
everything about him just seemed kind of off. He seemed, again, credit to the performance of him there. Don Cheadle is like he kind of had that sassy girly vibe, that mentality. Like he had a lot of feminine traits about him that he kind of like subtly rolled into his character.
That's right. The character was female Skrull. I forgot about that.
Yeah. That's why I was saying it's like so sassy. That's how about this? How about the idea that an advanced alien race, fresh out of an intergalactic battle with another advanced alien race, who used advanced technological spaceships to crash land here, equipped with masking abilities and knowledge of said advanced technology, would sit around 30 years waiting for a new planet from a lowly human. They're very reliant on Nick, just good old regular Nick Fury.
Kind of a fair point.
Like, why the series kind of paints them as like helpless when in reality, like, they're far like superior in just about everything than humans are, right?
Yeah, it's like it's a very fair point. Like, I don't understand. You've poked a hole for sure.
And the other one, this is an original thought. I saw this on some reviews here, but when Rhodey, who again presumably at this point in time is a Skrull at Endgame, goes to kill Thanos in the very beginning, they get a fully inhabitable planet that they can go to. That's gone. It was just him. Right? It was just Thanos there. That in theory they could go back to, like when he's farming and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And he just never takes, or she never takes her people there.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, right. That's pretty good. I forget where maybe that's New Rockstars, maybe something like that, but I forget where.
Good point.
That's good stuff. Okay, so what aged the worst, Nick? I've been waiting for this. You watched the AI intro. You've been very outspoken about the AI intro. Why is this age the worst for you?
I mean, it's always it's to me.
Well, first, what did you think of it? I'm sorry.
I mean, look, it's like from what I see visually, yeah, sure, it makes sense for this, like the whole. It's fine. Like, it is not. If that was done by human hands, I would say I like that. They did a good job with it. But knowing that it's not, and it's done by people saying, I want this, like typing stuff out. Basically, you or I could do that effectively.
Yeah,
we like, if that was animation, you and I can't do that. Like, I don't know. I'll speak for myself here. As much as maybe I can visualize some stuff creatively, I don't have the muscle mechanics to do that. It is very difficult to do that kind of stuff, and you have to have a certain mind. So to go and have a machine do it, it's meaningless to me, is what it comes down to. That's how I feel about art created by AI, whether it's written word or this. And I'm sure there are other things that will start to pop up along the way. It's meaningless to me. It's just colors on a screen.
Absolutely. I can see it coming to like, I can see it reaching to a point where it's over bleeding into the art, right? And it's like art needs to have a human emotion to it, a human aspect to it, right? And it can feel hollow, like you were saying about writing. I think within this vacuum of this show, it works perfectly for it because it's subtly creeping over, like we mentioned when all this first came out, right? It's an alien technology that's slowly taking over, and it's slowly creeping its way into human existence there. So I think in that aspect, it's a very like meta type of thing that I think works for it. I think if you were to put it on a larger scale, or if you were to say, I don't know, make the It's Always Sunny intro AI, that doesn't work for me. You know what I mean? Or like any other show. Like, I think for a Secret Invasion show, I think it works like that.
I think that's fair. And I think if they had said that coming at it, like before we even saw it, then I would have been fine with it. But the fact that it was, again, one of those things where you've talked about before, when it's like, oh yeah, like we've gotten, how many times with James Gunn has explained like Groot stuff. Obviously we can't understand Groot, so it's a little different. But like when that happens, it's like, yeah, if it's not in the movie, then like what's going on? As much as I like hearing details outside of it, but when you look at when you talk about this, it's like, oh, we made this decision and we're not going to tell you guys till after. We're going to see how you respond, and then we have this response kind of in the can. If everybody's kind of upset, it seems very disingenuous. I do agree with your point though. Like, it makes sense for this show. I still don't like it because it's taking jobs from other people. And you can say, oh, like people have started citing like, oh, there's still people who like have to work on this. And I understand, like, bottom line is all corporations care about, but it's like, it's half of people are losing their jobs.
Right.
And then again, what it comes down to for me is with art, whether it's writing, music, anything like that, it's like, what is being said in this song? Like, don't get me wrong, there's music that like, is like, I just want party music and whatever. But a lot of times it's like, I want something that's saying something. Needs a voice.
I hear you. I can hear what you're saying there. I just saw a clip of AI play-by-play on the Masters. Someone laid it over some software over the most recent Masters, and it is the most heartless, soulless thing. It's just like Tiger Woods with the shot from 150 yards away. He's using a 9-iron. Ball's up, and then there's just a huge silence while the ball's in the air because it's waiting for it to land so it can calculate the distance to the hole and everything. And it's like, and he's 3 feet from the hole, and that was the clip, So I was like, it's so bad, but what doesn't help it from my point of view are all the play-by-play people who then quote tweet that and says, like I saw. Play-by-play is an art form similar to Michelangelo and they're comparing themselves to these all-time great artists. And it's like, no, you just talk about sports, And while I agree it's an art form, it's the overcorrection, right? It's the pushing it so far to compare yourself to like Michelangelo or Picasso or something like that, where it's like, okay, well, get over yourself a little bit here. You're not helping yourself,
Yeah, you're not gonna like. Not too many people are gonna feel bad for you when you're going and talking about yourself in that way. But my thing that I just every time like this is the one of the reasons why I like. There's a lot of like, I guess I don't know. Is AI like a hot button issue? You would say?
Yeah, I would say so.
The reason I don't have a problem talking about AI like that is like a hot button issue because I normally don't do that kind of stuff. Is because this can impact everybody. I don't like. I'm sure there are a few people who like this won't impact in any way. And maybe there are some people who like they're the ones that run the AI that for until we get the Terminator, they'll be fine. But like everybody is gonna feel the impact of this in some way, and I just don't trust that it's gonna be for the positive for the majority of people. So like, yeah. I agree with you, Wes. Like, oh, when someone goes and insults a play-by-play person, and they're like, or whatever, they go and they say this thing about their job and how it's like this amazing thing, this gift from God. Like, all right, take it easy, buddy. But at the same time, I know that they're going to be impacted. I'm going to be impacted. You're going to be impacted. Like more than likely we are, I should say.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. It's my similar thought with like the actors strike. Maybe not so much the writer's strike, but the actors strike. Is these Hollywood actors make so much money and then complain about how little money they get. And while I'm always in favor of millionaires over billionaires, I'm neither of those. To see these people complaining and I'm going about my everyday life, just picking up my lunch pail, my hard hat, and going to work. You know what I mean? It's like, all right, get over yourself. You're playing pretend in front of a camera. But in theory, I'm always like pro union because I am the little guy.
And I understand
does that make sense?
No, it totally makes sense. And generally speaking, too, like when we talk about like athletes and stuff, like it's just like,
yeah.
I'm generally speaking, I don't like. It's like okay, like you guys go and figure your stuff out. But in this case, like I look at this twofold. One, you have AI, which could take their jobs in some capacity, is absolutely possible. We've heard about that kind of stuff. And two, that them doing this, their whatever their complaints are aside, and without looking into their money and everything, them doing this is more impactful than the writers doing this. So I appreciate them backing the writers.
Bigger name, more attention to it, everything like that.
They're like. As much as I love talking about the writers and like, especially when we're talking about comics, like actors are way bigger of a deal when it comes to
bigger reach for sure.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because you say it may not affect anyone right away, but it will, down the road. And it's funny because I think like 4 or 5 years ago when all this talk about like automated trucks for like the shipping industry and everything were going, like all these truckers were going to be losing their job. There was a bunch of like nerdy hipster coders who were saying, well, why don't you just learn to code? Just learn to code, and just all that stuff because they were losing their job. And now all of these coders are losing their jobs out to AI that can be done. You know what I mean? So it's kind of come like full circle. So it's like, you got to be careful about who you make fun of because the AI is going to come for you one way or the other.
This is why I'm just asking people to have a little bit of foresight with this. This is why it's one of the things where I don't like mind. I get annoyed like about it, but like I feel compelled to talk about it when it comes up. It's weird. I'm not usually like that.
You got to get on your soapbox every now and again and wash up,
I guess this is my thing.
Yeah. Hey, die on that hill. I'm here for it.
Thanks.
Who was the best performance by a side character? I feel like there's a couple of good choices here.
Well, it depends on who you're talking about as side characters. I think it's Sonya Fallsworth. No questions asked.
Yeah, it's Sonya Fallsworth. I think, maybe you don't consider Gravik a side character as like the lead villain.
Yeah.
But he certainly did a great job. But Vera, I think, could be considered a side character.
Yes, I agree.
Who I thought was awesome. But my first choice was with Sonya Fallsworth. I thought, speaking of sass, she played that sassy British woman down to a T. Perfect. Right. I've heard that she's done that in a couple of other type of roles that she's done. So she's kind of used to that. But I liked her just kind of moving around in a super powered world without any superpowers and just like feeling like a boss.
Her
It's
versus
like no fear.
versus Julia Louis-Dreyfus. I am very much here
Yeah.
for that rivalry in the MCU. So please give me that.
It may not be a rival. They may be on the same team, but my early thought is they're against one another.
I hope they're against one another. But on the same team would be funny. Any way that they're involved together, I'm very much interested in that. Character was well written, and obviously she did a great job. Gravik, if I don't consider him a side character, I mean, he's the main antagonist. If he was a side character, I would put him ahead of Sonya Falsworth for sure, because he's probably the best performance of this show. I mean, it's him or Nick Fury. Yeah, and Vera was great too. Vera was very good. Like you said, there was a lot of good performances in this.
Yeah, and she has some great depth in there. She adds a lot of layers to the character, quite literally, right? Kind of playing that spy, but also the conflicted wife and lover, and like how do you hurt the one you love the most, and all that stuff. So, very interesting concepts with that. Who lost the movie?
Rhodey.
Rhodey lost the movie, yeah, but he may come back on the winning side because again, like he's been poorly used or underutilized. Some would say, he's kind of been a bit character this whole time, so this could be his opportunity to kind of flesh out some things a little bit more with him.
Rhodey could actually be part of what will age the best, because now his stock in the MCU could skyrocket from this show.
Yeah, you're wondering now you're interested in what's going on with Rhodey. Like, how many times have we asked this question?
He could be who won the movie then, too.
Yeah, but right now he's the clear loser, though. I agree. Yes. But the other one would be comic book fans, just for the fact of the misappropriation of Secret Invasion. Doing that to get, drum up hype or get attention to it. I don't necessarily care, but I can certainly understand feeling duped if you were a lover of that comic book run. And then this is like nothing to it. It's a fancy little trick by Marvel because technically it's not lying. It's they're being factual, but not truthful, right? There's kind of the difference. Like factually, this series did feature an invasion of Skrulls that secretly infiltrated America. So by definition, it was a secret invasion, but it's not the secret invasion that you read from the comic books that had all the popularity and excitement for this series to begin with.
Yeah. It's I mean, this is where it's tough to, like, you want to have like every character that was in certain stories, but now we're dealing less with like the Fox issue, obviously, that we had over the years, and then obviously Sony can still be odd, but this is one of the reasons why like I love comics is like you don't. Hey, I want to have Tony Stark in here. Is it going to mess with the mainline Tony Stark story? No, then who cares? Yeah, he can be in there. That's fine. Or we can put, like, for big time events, if they're big enough, if they're good enough, some shit can get put on pause. So, that's where like that's one of the reasons why I like it so much more than a show or movie form.
Yeah, and you just like the feel of print in your hands. You're an old school guy.
I do have a shirt that someone got me that says I love the smell of. I love the smell of newsprint in the morning.
Ah, very nice, Dan. Look at that. Old school journal right there.
Yeah.
Who won the movie though? If it wasn't Rhodey, who won the movie?
It's Kingsley Ben Nadir.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, absolutely. Breakout performance. I didn't recognize him from anything else. Apparently he's in the Barbie movie too.
Yes, he is.
So this totally different. Is a pretty good week for him, though. I could have this series come out, and he even if the series isn't well received, he's kind of been getting personal kudos as well as being in like the biggest movie in the country right now. So that's we talked about who was it? Jonathan Majors at that moment. Who was the other guy? Was it Oscar Isaac?
He was busy. Yeah, he was.
Oh, he had a big one. Chris Pratt was another one. But you have all this stuff.
Who's the guy that's? Oh wow, Pedro Pascal.
That's it. Yes, Pedro Pascal. Yeah, with The Last of Us and The Mandalorian, right?
Yep.
But I mean, you have this kind of timing perfectly. We mentioned this again. A couple people. You have Chris Pratt with Super Mario Brothers, Guardians 3. Jonathan Majors. So like, yeah, it all works out. And I think Oscar Isaac too, right? I mean, he had Across the Spider-Verse and.
Yep.
I guess Dune, but that's further down the road.
Is he in that one too?
Oh, probably not actually.
We had Moon Knight,
and Moon Knight, yeah. But yes, all that stuff. Kingsley Ben-Adir, great. Samuel L. Jackson did a good job as well. This might have been a better suited title if it was just called Fury.
Maybe. Maybe.
And then maybe you don't piss off the comic book fans like that.
But again, like most people, like it would have. Well, actually, what am I saying? All these scores were like it just got lambasted on Rotten Tomatoes. So I don't know.
Exactly.
I mean, for us, like it didn't need much more. It's just like the, it landed.
No, and again, I think we both. I think I can speak for you when I say this. We both probably have adjusted expectations, at least for the Disney Plus shows. Maybe just like, all right, I'm not putting a huge stock into this. Although I was excited for this series and liked it for the most part.
I know you've adjusted. I don't know if we're on the same level with that though. Like I don't, because I've liked a lot more of the stuff. I think
that's true.
And like, because again, like the thing where we differ is like you, as much as I like the connective tissue, that is your number one thing with the MCU still, right?
Yeah, just about. Yeah.
Like I understand if it's not anymore. So like that's where there's been a little bit of like differentiation on our end.
Yeah. No, I hear you on that there. So maybe, yeah.
But
yeah, maybe not a changing of the expectation. Maybe just a slight recalibration.
I mean, you have in some ways changed your mind at least.
I won't change my mind because I don't have to, because I'm an American.
All right, so that's the Secret Invasion exit survey here. Nick gave it an 80. I gave it an 81. That's an 80.5 score. That puts us where, Nick, at 32?
Mm-hmm.
No, yeah, 32. I did get that right. 32 out of 41 for our CMM MCU rankings to date. So go watch it on Disney Plus or don't, because it's over and we're just going to be moving forward. Maybe you can just listen to this episode and know everything that you have to know.
Yeah, that's fair.